Welcome back to Daily Chess Analysis, Episode 7. I'm Turkish Films. Let's get into it. Now, to be honest, this game is just sort of meh. You can see we didn't play our best, right? I only played, basically I was flipping a coin to see whether or not I was going to make a good move or not a very good move. And this is what it came out to be. So he kind of, I had a little chance here to maybe fight for something, and I missed his previous move. And so we'll see it. We'll kind of fast forward through the ending, actually, because at some point it's just lost and there's nothing else to talk about. Okay, we have d4, knight f6, c4, e6, and I used to play knight c3, the Nimzo-Indian. Bishop b4 is a very common response. And he went for the Sämisch variation. a3, I'm going to take that, and he takes back. So I've slightly crippled his pawn structure over here, given him doubled c-pawns, and castled. So you can see here black is up in development. Maybe we count this as we have two pieces developed. The king's also developed because he's in the corner. But let's just say we have two pieces developed right now, and white has no pieces developed. Okay. So bishop g5. I'm more familiar with queen c2, but bishop g5, right, creates a pin. And on the next move, it was kind of like I played it because I had assumed I'd already played h6. I played d5. And I was like, wait a second, my h-pawn's still in h7. In this kind of situation, you want to play h6. It gives your king luft. There's pretty much no downside to it. If the bishop goes back, that's fine. It kind of wasted a little bit of time. My knight's going to come out anyway. This is just a weird and kind of bad move order. So he definitely should have taken that center pawn because I'm forced to take back and he has no more doubled pawns. Okay, now I play h6, correcting my mistake. He goes back. And here I played knight b to d7. The reason I played knight b to d7 is I know I'm supposed to play c5, but don't I just get an isolated pawn? Because I thought after c5, we have takes, and takes. But, I mean, look at that structure. It's pretty bad. So in order for me to get an isolated pawn, it ends up being pretty bad for my opponent as well. And of course, he's not going to take, because that's the worst thing ever. The computer is automatically saying black is winning because he sees three white pawns in front of each other. Okay. But c5 is the correct move. I played knight b to d7, maybe preparing a c5, more importantly, defending this knight. And after knight to f3, I wasn't really paying attention to what he was doing. I was kind of focused on my position. Again, I wanted to play c5, but again, I was like, well, I don't really think I can play it because taking doesn't seem so good for me right now. So I played b6, both preparing c5 and letting my bishop out. So basically, I'm trying to be very multi-purpose, and the computer would rather me be very direct. And part of that has to do with just the demands of the opening. I had a lead in development in the opening, and the longer that I take with moves like b6, with moves like knight b to d7, the more time I'm giving my opponent to fortify himself and to put us on even footing, in which he just has a pin, he has more central pawns, and I don't have anything to show for it. And after knight e5, I played queen e8. Now the reason I played queen e8 is because I saw this and thought, oh no, my knight, the only way to save my knight is to play this. And I didn't want to open up my king like this, especially because I thought he could just take here, and I had to take here, and I was very, very sad and scared about this. You can see it's mate in 2. So, if in this position he takes here, my response has to be queen to f6. And he just goes away with his bishop. I check, and he moves up, and we have stuff happening, right? But it's just a draw at this point. So I didn't want this to happen. And I definitely wouldn't want him to sacrifice here when my king is so open. So that's why I played queen to e8 instead of taking. He captured. I captured back incorrectly. Again, it wants me to go for this move. The problem I saw with this is I thought he just takes here. But we've just traded pieces, and I was bishop stacked, so he has to save it. Computer recommends queen to h5. Taking here is bad, for obvious reasons. Okay, so knight captures d5, not the best. After bishop b5, I played a6 because this pin is really irritating, and then immediately face palmed because this is just staring me right in the face. Knight captures c3 is 1.3 for black. And after I played a6, it was just an immediate oh. So this is basically me getting too wrapped up about this stuff that's going on and not looking at all the captures. That's a capture. I should look at that. And once I look at that capture, I see, oh, that's a great move. But instead I just thought, oh no, I have 2 defenders, 2 attackers. Let's try to move this bishop away. So I've kind of panicked here, basically, instead of just being a little bit more precise. And after knight captures b3, the computer gives captures here. We have captures, and now we have queen to b3. If we do it in the other order, which I thought he was gonna, I thought he'd play queen b3 here probably. Then I'm just very happy to take this. He's gonna take here, and I think I just take on e5. Yeah, take on e5. He can trade queens if he'd like to. Computer recommends it. Queen e5, and d captures here, and we can play c5. We can play bishop a6 in time. But this is just fine for us. We're just off a pawn in a position that's totally calm. Yeah, so that was horrendous, a6. Right after I played it, I knew it was just a huge mistake. Rook a7 was my choice. Just defending here. Queen to b3. And f6. I'm surprised that f6 wasn't worse of a move. So in the game, you could hear me. I said, what are all the captures? And I saw this capture and saw that it would be threatening to win a pawn. So I thought, let's make a bigger threat. Let's attack the knight. The problem is he's taking with check. So even though I'm threatening a piece over a pawn, this comes with check. So there's nothing, this isn't really a great threat. And knight e7 would just take away the threat of winning a pawn in the first place and not introduce weaknesses like the e6 pawn. So that's one thing that I have to work on and that I'm not very good at yet. When defending, try to defend basically like as a minimalist. Try to defend kind of as little as possible, in so much as you're not creating weaknesses or overextending to defend yourself. If I can move my pieces to defend without moving my pawns, then I'm not creating extra weaknesses. But if I'm moving pawns every move in order to defend myself, those pawns can't come backwards. And the closer they are to your opponent, the easier they are for your opponent to attack them. So I play f6, which weakens the e6 pawn. He just takes, and here I knew that taking here, I knew that taking this bishop would be met with queen takes check, which is no good. So I thought my only other option was takes here, and didn't look at my other capture, which was knight captures here, revealing the defense of this pawn, so he can't take. And if takes at this point, we are happy to take, because the check is met by us developing our pieces and attacking the queen. So I was just so locked into, I played f6 to take this knight, that I didn't look at other possibilities, even very good possibilities of taking this kind of poorly placed knight, activating it towards the center with discovered defense, and eliminating the threat of winning a pawn. Okay, so of course he takes, king goes to h8, he castled here, and I took. Now here, you can hear me say that I had a plan of trying to organize something against the king. Now, if it's just a one-move threat, like a checkmate, then likely he has many ways to deal with that one-move threat. So I should have been thinking a little bit more long-term here, and how can I stop my opponent's threats? Bishop b7 doesn't attempt to do that. Knight to c5, the computer recommends, forces some pieces off, which means his attacking potential against me is blunted. And so we become, the more pieces get traded, the more on equal footing we end up being. And he has to be a little bit careful here actually about how he responds. But bishop b7 was my choice. Rook a to e1 is a great move. Queen g6 keeps good on the threat of attacking this pawn. And so he just defends completely naturally. And if this is kind of something that's kind of hard for me to miss sometimes. If your threat is met like simply, and the way that he meets the threat actually helps his position, such as attacking a pawn or taking a piece that was outside of the game and bringing it back into the game, that move might help them more than your threat helped you. So it's better to make threats that make your opponent react in an awkward way than to make them defend in a way they want. He wanted his bishop on g6, on g3 anyway. So playing queen to g6, threatening, in quotes, checkmate, just let him make that move with tempo against my pawn. Now, I saw he couldn't take the pawn because there's a few threats coming. Okay. So I played knight h5, trying to take away this piece, which I thought was quite good. After takes, that pawn was hanging. He sacks the exchange and attacks my rook. The rook has to go to a8, which is correct, but you might say, what about bishop d5? And I just completely missed that bishop d5 is attacking both rooks. And so clearly the move is to come back to attack the queen so he doesn't have time to take, and then my rook can come into the game, other ways. Instead, I just traded queens and then realized, oh, I have to lose a rook. And from here, the game is really not very interesting. He's +7 in this position. Notice that he's 2 pawns up, and he has a bishop when there's pawns on both sides of the board. If there's pawns on both sides of the board, the bishop becomes much more valuable than the knight. And while I do have a more active rook, he has 3 pawns, and 2 of those pawns are passed pawns. So I'm going to have to sacrifice one of my pieces to win these pawns, and then he's just going to have an extra piece in an endgame. So rook e8 check, I move my king up, bishop e4, gotta play king g6, rook e7, and I brought my knight back. Yeah, king g8's better, but at this point it's not really relevant. The game's kind of over. h6. I don't really help matters here. I forgot here that he can play king f7, king f2, so I don't win a pawn. There's blunders. My king goes backwards instead of forwards. He makes a queen. I sack all my pawns in order to try to check the king as many times as possible. And then checkmate follows shortly after. So the main takeaways from this, one is specifically in the Sämisch, the first minor thing is just play h6 when I have the opportunity if it's not a bad move. And 2, in the Sämisch, I have to be much more direct about going into the center. And I don't have to worry so much about, oh, he's winning a pawn, or oh, this is happening. I just have to be direct when I can be direct. I kind of overvalued the pin as well. I kind of over-respected it. And when I have an advantage, like something like a lead in development, I should utilize that as soon as possible. My king is not in the center. His king is very much in the center. So I should try all that I can to try to open up the position, even if there's kind of this annoying pin that's happening. The next mistake was a6. I just missed this tactic. And missing stuff like this is bad. So I shouldn't do that. And the way that I do that is by looking through every capture. I did that at a couple points in the game, and it saved me from making a horrible blunder, was by looking at what all the captures were. And once I looked at all the captures, I saw the move that he was going to play, and was able to fix and correct my course. Bishop b7, it doesn't match the spirit of the position. And while it does develop a piece, and it does lead to this, one move threat, it doesn't deal with the bigger problem of him having lots of pieces near my king and lots of attacking potential. And queen b6 is sort of similar, just not seeing that this is bad and taking note of that. So a lot of basic lessons this time, but still valuable lessons nonetheless. This has been Turkish Films with Daily Chess Analysis, Episode 7. Thank you so much for watching, and please always, in addition to checkmating your opponent, stay Turkish.